Hello everyone. Welcome to my rubber stamp closet. Jax just jumped in there. He loves going to the back of the closet. It's mysterious and fun, I guess, for a cat. I found this one about the footprints. This next card, I'm going to use some elements. I still have one more card design to make. It has made me very sad thinking about the people that have passed away. This next card, I'm going to implement some other techniques, and I'm going to use some sand to decorate it. Switched up the last card I said I was going to make that I didn't get to in my previous video, and I found a rubber stamp I'm going to use instead. I'm going to be using this set of stamps here. Now, there is some history with this little rubber stamp, or not the actual stamp itself, but the picture on it. So I just wanted to talk about that for a moment. One of the people that I've lost recently was a lady that absolutely loved the beach. She tried to go on as many cruises, and she tried to go to the beach as many times as she could because she just loved being on the water. She loved being on the sand. She loved sitting in a hotel room way up high on a balcony drinking her morning coffee and looking at the ocean. In addition, her mother has a painting on her wall, and the painting is very similar to this rubber stamp. And when I remembered, as I was going through my rubber stamps, I couldn't find this one yesterday, but I remembered this one, and I said that would make the perfect card because it even looks like the person we lost. Now, this person that I'm talking about, she tragically passed away. She had very aggressive cancer that no one knew about. And she didn't catch it until it was too late. She leaves behind a daughter and 3 little tiny grandchildren. And therefore, I have a whole list of people I'm going to be making this for. There are 6 individuals that I want to make this special card for. So I'm going to be making 6 of the same exact card for these folks. I was making the other greeting cards. It made me very sad. So let's begin. As you see here, I got quite the collection of stuff in front of me. This is a sugar shaker, but in it, I don't have sugar in it. I've never used it for sugar. I use it for sand. It's play sand that you get at a hardware store. And the reason I have sand in here is because every now and then I make either a scrapbook layout or a greeting card with seashells. And I made one for my daughter, and it was Hello Kitty, and there was a crab, and then there was a beach scene. And then also my son one time had an art project at school, and it was a beach, and there was rocks and sand and little seashells. And that's why I have this in a little jar. I also have some clear tacky glue, and I have a paintbrush, and it's a very thin tip. I have my bone folder that we talked about in the prior video, as well as my sanding block. I also have a collection of chalks. Yesterday in the video, I used the brush markers, but today we're going to be using chalk. And I also have little sponges for applying the chalk. And once again, I have my embossing powder, the same silver that I used yesterday, the heat gun, and also another glue stick. I still have some remnants left from yesterday of the white paper, but these cards are going to be made with a white base and then a blue overlay with a white overlay on top. If you remember from yesterday's video, I start out by folding some paper and then cutting it on the crease. Now there are 2 halves, and then you fold these again into a card. Now I have a card base. The next step I take a piece of blue paper. I need to make an overlay smaller than the white card. So I'm going to be trimming this up, having it again. And now on each piece, I'm taking off a 1/2 inch on each side. Well, not on each side, I should clarify that. Not on all 4 sides. One small side and one long side, I'll be taking a 1/2 inch off. And that way, when I apply it to the white card, it is now a little bit smaller. I have more white cardstock, which I will be trimming 1 inch off of the short side and the long side so that I can overlay the blue paper. And then it goes like this. So it's all glued together, the white background, 1 piece of blue cardstock, and 1 piece of white cardstock. And then this will be where I make my stamp impression. Now I have 6 of each type of sheet. I have 6 of the folded cards in white. I have 6 of the smaller blue overlay papers, and I have 6 of the even smaller white overlay papers. So at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to glue on with the glue stick the white onto the blue and then onto the card. And that's done now, so that's what it looks like. They're just glued together. I didn't measure or anything before gluing them all together. I just eyeballed it. Next, I'm going to start edging. Now, sometimes I do this with ink pads, where I'll take a rubber stamp ink pad and I'll just edge around. Today, I'm going to do it with chalk. My daughter made this in school years ago, by the way. I think it's so cute. These are just simple makeup sponges I get at the Dollar Tree. I just use these to ink and chalk and different things like that. I have this nice set of 4 little chalks. Now, most of you probably buy supplies as you go, as you need them. I've had supplies in my home for many, many, many years. I don't even remember where I bought this. I want to say like a Michael's Craft Store. I also have this, and I think this also came from Michael's Craft Store. But in any event, I haven't needed to buy any new supplies, so I couldn't even tell you where to get this today or how much it costs. While looking at the card and looking at the chalk, I think I'm going to go to this one here, which is very similar to the color of the paper. And I'm just going to dab my sponge in it. As you can see what it looks like on the sponge, it looks very close to the paper color. And I'm just going to start edging. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to work in a certain pattern. That's all I mean. Just go around with your sponge and apply your color all the way around. That's what I mean by edging. It may have another name for it. That's what I call it. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. The next step is the placement of the rubber stamp. As I mentioned yesterday, you have a choice. In most stamps, you can choose to do it this way or this way. And I think I'm just going to measure out the rubber stamp roughly and see to make sure. I mean, I guess it really doesn't matter for this card. I was thinking of doing it this way, but the problem is the inner message is kind of tall. So if I do it this way, it's going to take up that whole page without any type of border on the top or bottom of it. But if I do it this way, I can center it in the card. So because of the message, I'm going to be centering it in the card today, which means I'll be stamping it this way. So I have this nice silver embossing powder, and I like it because when it heats up, it retains a sheen to it. Some of the powders I've used before, including gold, they come out matte, like a matte finish. I have this ink pad. It's clear, and it's for embossing powder. So you basically just take it and you want to just ink around the picture of the stamp. Now, as I was saying in my prior video, I just want to show you here, this has a lot of extra rubber around the image. And what you don't want to do, you don't want to hold your ink pad at an angle, because if you do that, you might end up inking the edging, and then that will look like a smeared or flawed design when you emboss it, because the embossing powder is going to stick to the ink. And therefore, you want to just press on the actual picture and try not to get it around the edges. The stamps I worked with yesterday didn't have much extra rubber to them, so they actually came out nice and crisp, like this one, for example. But I did make an error right here where I had a little bit of extra ink and the embossing powder stuck to it right there, so it made a little smudge. But I showed this card to some people and they couldn't even tell. Unless you're a crafter and have done this before, you probably would never even notice. But when that happens, I like to catch it with a paintbrush and just brush away the extra embossing powder. So if it happens with this one, I have a brush here ready to go in case. And you can see, for the most part, you can kind of see on the stamp where you've gotten the ink, because it's shiny. It makes kind of a glossy finish on the stamp. If you can see that in the reflection there. So sometimes I'll even hold it up and just see if I've accidentally got it around the edges of the rubber. And if I did, I'll just wipe it off before it has a chance to make a mess. I don't see any on this. So then you just take your stamp and you press it down in the middle of the white overlay as best as you can, just eyeballing it. Then I'm going to take the powder and I'm going to sprinkle it over the image. That's what this tray comes in handy for, so you can empty it out. And there's a little spot right here at the top of the bow, if you can see that, right there. That doesn't have enough powder, so I'm going to repowder that section. And it looks like I might not have gotten enough ink there, but that's okay. I will fix it for next time. This time, however, it's fine. Nobody's ever going to see that you forgot to ink a little section of bow. Okay, so don't worry. If you're a perfectionist like me, it's going to drive you nuts because you're going to be like, oh, I made a mistake, I need to redo it. You really don't. It's like when I was playing the piano when I was a youngster and I'd made a mistake and I started over and people said, we didn't even know you made a mistake. It's the same thing. You know, you're your own worst critic sometimes, and that's what I get caught up in too. I think, oh, that's terrible. What a terrible mistake, when other people won't even notice. Then you take your heat gun and you want to let it heat up for a moment just to get it going. And I just want to say, as a safety precaution, never point this at yourself, your skin, a child, a dog, a cat, another human, any type of animal. any type of person or anything that can melt or anything flammable. If you had some nail polish remover here, you would need to get that out of the way. This is a very dangerous tool. It's a craft tool sold at craft supply stores. And it even says right here, caution, hot surface, avoid contact. This is not a hair dryer. This is a heat gun. So the amount of heat that comes out here is very, very, very hot and direct. So after you warm it up for a second, you're going to point it at your embossing powder. And you're going to notice it's going to start to melt. And you'll know it's done when it's all shimmery. And if it's dull looking in any spots, that means you missed a spot, and just heat it up. It will not smear after it's heated and shimmery. But prior to that, if it's still in powder form, it will smear. So you want to be careful with that. Next, after you do that, you want to take this stamp and you want to apply the same clear ink. Again, you just want to eyeball the placement, but with words, you want to make sure that they're not too crooked on the page. And then you're going to sprinkle your embossing powder. Now, I did not do a very good job of getting it straight. It is a little crooked, but again, nobody's going to open the card and go, oh my goodness, it's crooked. You know what I'm saying? It's not that crooked. If you sell your work, then I would say redo it. But if you're just giving this to a person, nobody's ever going to say, oh my goodness, I see that it's like off by 1/8 of an inch. And there you go. Look how pretty that is. And it shimmers. It's lovely. I now have 5 more of these to do. So I'm going to do that and I'll be right back. I got a little carried away with the ink. And as you can see, I have a little few spots that don't belong. So I'm just taking the paintbrush and I'm just wiping it away. And then when I apply the heat gun, it will dry the ink. So I don't have to worry about anything smearing. Now that all 6 cards are embossed, I'm going to find a yellow. With all my chalks, there's a lot of yellows to pick from. I'm going to use one of the scraps from when I was cutting down the papers to size, and I'm going to see which yellow I like best for the color of the dress. I think this is the most appropriate. As you can see, it's a very light yellow. And with this, because it's a chalk stick, I can just apply it directly onto the paper. I also have these little places on the dress, like the straps of the dress. So I'm using a marker for that. And I think that looks really super cute with the chalk, but then an added touch to the strap and the bow just to make it pop a little bit more. So cute. I also looked at different marker colors against the chalk just to match up the correct one. If I had started with the top one here, that's very, very bold. I would not have been happy with that one. Now I have finished coloring in with chalk the yellow portions, and now I'm going to go on to the hair color. Taking into consideration the yellow color, I'm going to use a little brown stick for the hair. I'm just making some lines where the hair would go, and then I'm just rubbing it in with my finger. That's what it looks like. Now I've done all of the hair, and I think next I'm going to go on to the little seashells. And for that, I'm just going to use a fine tip marker. I just have to pick out a color. Again, using my little color sample here, I have this gray marker, and as you can see, it looks lovely with the browns, the yellows, and it almost even matches the blue color, even though it's gray. So I'm going to go ahead and do the seashells in gray. So that just gave it a little pop of color. Wouldn't it be adorable to make her a little pearl bracelet for her wrist? Seeing how this is a beach scene, I think that would be so cute. So I'm going to go ahead and apply these self-stick pearls. Isn't that precious? It makes it look like she's wearing a pearl bracelet. And what I have here are 2 bathroom cups. Normally I'm more fun than this and I grab like a cupcake liner or something fun, but I don't have any cupcake liners all right now. I'm fresh out. What I'm going to do with the first cup is I have some glitter, just plain glitter, and then I have the sand. And I'm going to mix a mixture of both to make the sand shimmery. So I'm just going to add a little bit of sand, about equal parts, I would say. And then I'll mix it up. I mean, it just looks like shimmery sand at this point. The next step I'm going to do is I'm going to take the card, and on the inside, there's some water here, and I'm just going to color that in blue with the same chalk sponge I used to make a rough edge around the card. And that's all, just giving it a tad of color. Now that the inside is colored up a little bit, I'm going to take the glue and put it in the other cup. With my paintbrush, I'm going to paint the glue onto the front of the card where I want the sand to decorate the card. And you can see where it's shimmery, where I just added the touch of glue there at the bottom, along where the seashells are. And then I'm just going to pour the sand onto the glue. So now there's a sandy bottom where the little girl is stepping in with her little pearl bracelet to get a seashell. And I'm going to do this for all 6 cards. And that's what it looks like. And it might take a day or 2 to dry, so I'll just set these aside until I go to the funeral. So now I've made 6 of the cards, and they're ready. When they dry off, they'll be ready to go with me. And their envelopes addressed to each one of the dear friends. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a tip or two. Take care.